fourth year doing this event. Hope we had around 300 people. Hope everybody had a good time. I saw a lot of people eating carrots the fourth break. That's a good sign for you listen to our keynote in the morning. But then I saw a lot of people eating ice cream as well. So as you know, this is a labor of love for us. We are a consulting company, but we do this event to bring the BI community together. With your help and support, hopefully we can continue doing this stuff. Our next year's date is March 16th, 2017. Hope you will join us again. Before I introduce our keynote, I would like to draw your attention to a yellow feedback survey in your bag. So after the keynote is done, maybe you can fill out that survey, and then you will find blue shirt with people giving you a raffle ticket and taking the survey back from you. And then we'll have raffles done for that, plus the Twitter raffle, and all of our sponsors are actually doing raffles. So I hope you put your business card or your information in their goals. You must be present to win, so please stay to the end. Well, we have saved the best presentation for the last, really. Wayne Eckerson is a well-known name in our field. We are grateful that he is here as our keynote. Wayne is known internationally recognized thought leader in the business intelligence and analytical field, who thinks critically, writes clearly, and I'll tell you more about his book, and presents persuasively about complex topics. He's a sought-after consultant, noted speaker, and best-selling author. Currently, Eckerson is a principal consultant in Eckerson Group, a research and consulting firm, and helps business leaders use data and technology to drive better insight and actions. Please welcome Wayne Eckerson.
Well, thanks, Kaid. It's a pleasure to be back here. I think I had the honor of kicking off the very first summit 3 years ago, right? And look what's happened. It's, tripled in size, pretty much, and it's a great event. It's certainly a testament to all the good work that's going on here in the Great Lakes. So I'm here to talk about revolution. There's a revolution going on in our midst, and I know that some of you are experiencing it. You're seeing it, feeling it, tasting it, touching it. And this revolution is fundamentally challenging our ideas about how we deliver information and value to the business. And this revolution has not always been favorable to us. And by us, I'm talking about the BI profession. Although I've met quite a few folks from the business here as well, which is tremendous. It's great to see both sides of the aisle here, so to speak. But in this new world order, in some respects, the BI domain has been pushed aside to some degree. If you're feeling a little bit marginalized, a little bit ignored, don't worry, you're not alone. What I'm here today to do is help you as business intelligence professionals navigate this power shift, navigate your way into the new world, and not only give you some techniques and tips to survive this transition, but also to thrive in it. So let me tell you what we're going to talk about in the next 45 minutes or so. One, I hope to convince you that the data world has changed, and you probably know this. Data is flooding in from more sources than ever before, faster than ever before. And that's one thing, but the more important thing is that the business wants it. They want more data, they want it faster, and they don't want to wait for us in IT to deliver it. BI is also one of many players. We used to be the go-to people if the business needed information to drive insights. Now we're one of many players. But even though we're one of many, I think we still have a critical role to play. We need to help the organization create a shared vision, a shared organization, and a shared architecture for turning data into insights and action. So hopefully that's what we'll cover in the next 40 minutes or so. And you can be the judge at the end whether I covered these points and convinced you. So I said this is about revolution. And revolutions fundamentally are about ideas. ideas that challenge the status quo, the prevailing orthodoxy about how things should be done, how things work. And there have been many revolutions in the course of human history, most about politics and power. But more germane to us here, there have been revolutions in scientific ideas and technology. Probably the biggest and most important was the one that happened in the 16th century, when in 1543, this little-known Polish humanist named Nicholas Copernicus published a treatise that was called, and I love this, The Revolution of Celestial Beings. Play on words from our perspective. Revolution of planets around the sun, but also fundamentally a revolution in ideas that was earth-shattering at the time. It upset the status quo and the orthodoxy that had held true for many, many hundreds of years, which is why he waited to the end of his life to publish this document. And in that document, he posited that it was the sun that lay at the center of the universe, and all the planets, the stars, and the moon revolved around it. Now, this was groundbreaking, it was earth-shattering, and it was politically trouble for him and the folks who followed him, guys like Kepler and Galileo and Newton. Because until that time, the prevailing notion was it was the Earth that lay at the center of the universe, and the sun and the moon and the planets revolved around it. And this came from the earliest scientists, guys like Ptolemy and Aristotle, Greeks who used empirical observation to back up their hypotheses. Because when they looked up into the heavens at night, they could see the stars and the planets orbiting the Earth day after day after day, night after night after night. And if they looked down at their feet, they could see that the ground was solid, immovable, unchanging. So it only made sense to come up with a geocentric view of the universe. Of course, there's one little hitch, which is shown in their Ptolemaic diagram here. Certain times of the year, certain planets appear to slow down, stop, and go in reverse, which is why you see this little hitch in the orbits of planets here in this diagram. They call this an epicycle, and they kind of wrote this observation out this way. We now know that's an optical illusion caused by the Earth moving faster than slower moving planets in their orbits. But anyway, the geocentric view of the world held sway for 1,000 or more years until Copernicus came along and blew it all up. That was a revolution of an idea that fundamentally changed the way we think about the universe. Now, in the BI world, bringing this closer to home, we're also experiencing revolution. And you could call our orthodoxy, say, BI centrism. And our gurus would be guys like Bill Inman and Ralph Kimball, who taught us that if you need to deliver information and insights to the business, there's only one way to do that. Of course, they had religious wars among themselves about exactly how to do it. But in hindsight now, we can see they were kind of both of them barking up the same tree. That if you had a data to insight to action challenge or problem, you built a data warehouse on a relational database and pointed query tools at it. That was the hammer. And so every BI application looked like a nail, whether you wanted to create reports, you wanted to monitor via dashboards and scorecards, do analysis, do exploration or mining. That was the solution, and still is. And the way you deliver that solution was with a business intelligence and data warehousing team, centralized at corporate. Well, things have changed, and now we're calling into question this approach to BI. What we're realizing that this is not the only intelligence. There are actually multiple intelligence besides business intelligence. There's continuous intelligence, there's analytics intelligence, and there's content intelligence. And all of these are driving after the same aim, to turn data into insights and action to support reporting and dashboarding and analysis and discovery and mining. But guess what? They're all being done with different tools and technologies and architectures and different people, different perspectives. So the world that we've lived in has become a lot more crowded, a lot more complex, and a lot more confusing. And some of us, I think, myself included, are getting a little dizzy trying to navigate our way. What do we keep from the old world? What do we take from the new world? And how do we mash it together into something that drives business value? So this revolution that we're experiencing has its basis in a technology revolution that you all probably understand. The underlying compute infrastructure that powers our computers and our software applications has grown through the roof exponentially from a price performance perspective, and has made things possible that we could only dream of even 5 years ago. The chip speed, the memory, the RAM, the CPU speeds, and the networks have all grown enormously in power and speed, while they have dropped in cost. And this has powered all kinds of revolutions, interactive visualizations that allow us to explore data at the speed of thought. Mobile computing, we can take the equivalent of a mainframe with us in the palm of our hand, a mainframe from years ago. We can do machine learning on petabytes of data instead of samples. We can do our whole computing through a thin wire of the internet to cloud resources in a third-party data center. In-memory databases that allow our queries to run much faster. And finally, big data, being able to process large volumes of data quickly on low-cost scale-out architectures. And all these things are fundamentally transforming the way we do business intelligence. And indeed, they're fundamentally transforming our society and the way we work and the way we interact with other people. So this compute infrastructure has fueled this analytical revolution I've been talking about. And the difference between the old world is as stark as moving from black and white TV to color TV, from a monochrome world to a Kodachrome world. So what are some of these changes? In the back end of our environments, we're seeing that we're moving from an enterprise data warehouse to a big data ecosystem, where the warehouse might be just one element of that ecosystem, surrounded by other systems fueling those other intelligences we talked about. We've gone from small data counted in gigabytes and terabytes to big data counted in terabytes to petabytes. We've gone from structured data that fits neatly in the rows and columns of a relational database to multi-structured data. Data that's streaming off of sensors, servers, email documents, audio and video images. All of this is data that the business wants to make decisions. We've gone from a batch world, where we load the warehouse once a night, or maybe even once an hour, to a real-time world, because we have to. The data is coming at us too fast. And more than that, the business wants that data, and they want it fresh. They don't want stale data anymore. We've gone from modeling data when we load it, schema on load as they call it, to a schema on read environment, where we only need to know that schema when we query the data, providing more flexibility in how we load the data and how we go access it. And finally, we've gone from a world of SQL only to SQL and NoSQL. So fundamental changes in the back ends of our system. They're causing us to rethink how we do things, how we architect our environments, what tools we bring in. On the front end, the changes have been just as stark. We've gone from tabular, this got a little bit out of sync somehow. We've gone from tabular interfaces to visual interfaces. We've gone from static to interactive, slow queries to fast queries, from reporting to analytics, from IT-driven environments to self-service-driven environments, from on-premises BI to cloud BI and mobile. Very stark changes, all happening seemingly at once. If you're not sleeping at night, there's something wrong with you. There is something wrong with you. So this revolution has caused what I call the big data squeeze. It's caused a conversation between senior executives and business unit directors, to whom a lot of the funding for information and a lot of the power for making decisions has moved. Squeezing BI sometimes out of this conversation. So let me play out this conversation to see if it rings true for you. Senior executive says, hey, McKinsey says we need big data analytics. The business unit director replies, yeah, we just hired a team of data scientists. What are they working on? Well, strategic stuff, customer lifetime value, fraud detection, predictive maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. Wow, that's excellent. We need that. Any ROI yet? No, but we built a 5-node Hadoop cluster in 3 weeks for little money and without IT. What? Wow, no IT, no money, big data rocks. I'm putting you in charge of BI and data warehousing. Thanks, boss. We'll migrate everything to Hadoop in no time. Of course, I just came from the Cloudera industry analyst event earlier in the week, and it looks like Hadoop is morphing. They don't want to say Hadoop is on the outs, but it's now Spark and cloud-based file systems like S3 and Google File System are in, and HDFS and MapReduce are out. So even in the world of big data, it's changing fast, and they're getting squeezed. So now we overlay this big data environment and all these changes I've just talked about onto the BI environment that we've known, loved, maybe hated for the last 10, 15, 20 years. There are dynamics inside our BI environment that have been playing out for that period of time that this new big data analytics revolution magnifies, accentuates, exacerbates. So let me go through these. There's a fundamental tension in the world of BI between two worlds. Gartner calls this multimodal BI. I've called it for many years top-down versus bottom-up BI. The fundamental mistake I see most organizations make in the world of BI is that they think they're building one environment, one BI environment. You're not. You're building at least 2 different environments just in the BI, the business intelligence space. The top-down environment is driven by IT, and it's focused on standards, standard nomenclature for data elements, standard definitions for metrics and hierarchies and dimensions. Whereas the world of bottom-up BI is driven by the business units, who are focused on speed and agility to meet new opportunities quickly in the marketplace. The top-down BI is focused on meeting the needs of casual users, executives, managers, and frontline workers who need to monitor the processes that they're being held accountable for and answer known questions, such as the metrics that they're being held accountable for. Whereas the bottom-up world, it's focused on meeting the needs of power users who have been charged by business unit heads to find new insights, to answer new questions that they didn't know they had yesterday, and for which you and IT can never gather requirements in advance because they don't know what those requirements are. And if you ask them, what do they tell you? Just give us all the data because we don't know what we're looking for yet. The top-down world uses certified, validated, trustworthy data that comes out of the data warehouse, whereas the bottom-up world uses data from anywhere they can find it. Any data that can help them answer a question from any source. So you can see that these are almost diametrically opposite environments. The top-down world really is the world of governance and control and standards, whereas the bottom-up world is the world of speed, flexibility, agility, and adaptability. And we need both to run a successful BI program. We need both to run a successful business. The problem that exists in most organizations is that these two worlds are at war with each other. the top-down world is very suspicious of the bottom-up world because the business analysts use the BI tools as glorified ETL tools to download huge volumes of data and stick it in their spreadsheets, which bogs down the performance of the data warehouse. And then they take those extracts and create these data silos and spread marks that undermine the consistency of information that we work so hard to preserve and govern in the top-down world. So what do? We shut them out. And so they have very little use for us. They work as hard as they can to circumvent us. The key to success in BI really is to figure out a way to bring these two worlds together because they are natural allies. The bottom-up world really is the instantiation of your next generation of requirements. You don't have to do formal requirements gathering. You just have to watch what these folks are doing in the trenches. But you can't watch them if they're doing their work surreptitiously, building data marts under their desktops. You need to get them out of the shadows and build environments, virtual workspaces, sandboxes, in your BI environment for them to work. In your data warehouse, in your Hadoop cluster, in your BI tools. Give them the flexibility, speed, and agility they want within a governed framework that you provide. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a while. What's interesting and fascinating, I find, because I've been in this industry long enough, is that the whole industry has flip-flopped between their emphasis on these two worlds every 10 years, like clockwork. So back in the 80s, the only thing there was top-down BI, reports coming out of mainframes and mini computers. But in the 90s, when BI and warehousing became hot, it flipped back over to the bottom-up world. This is when Business Objects, MicroStrategy, and Cognos came out with desktop querying, reporting, and OLAP tools. And guess who those were designed to meet the needs of? Business analysts embedded in the business units. But by 2000, those vendors and their customers realized, well, God, those analysts are only 5% of the whole population of potential BI users. Maybe we should focus on the other 95%. And that's when reporting and dashboarding and scorecarding came into fray. And those vendors that were once geared to analysts now became geared to enterprise deployments. And they became heavy and burdened with a lot of baggage to do enterprise deployments. It made them slower and more expensive. And then in 2010, this whole notion of big data and analytics, this new world that I've been talking about, hit with full force. And we're right a little bit past the midway cycle of this swing in this direction towards bottom-up BI. And I knew we were in the middle of this swing when last year, for the first time, I heard the phrase big data in the same sentence as governance. And I heard the word Tableau in the same sentence as governance. So I think slowly but surely that pendulum is going to shift back, and your time in the sun will start to shine again as the company realizes they need folks who understand how to manage and govern data and provide the consistency that the top-down world needs. And by the way, who drives the top-down world ultimately? It's the CEO who wants a single answer to a question like, how many customers do we have? And it's the CFO who wants economies of scale and wants to get rid of all these silos. And who runs the bottom-up world? It's your business unit, line of business heads. Does this ring true for anybody, this tension? Okay. So the question is, how do we pull these two worlds together? Do we split them down the middle? I don't think so. As I said earlier, I think you need to provide separate swim lanes for each of these worlds and then provide a gateway between them, which I'll show you. So there's not only a big data squeeze, there's a big BI squeeze between the business unit leader and the business unit director. Well, I think there's a typo there. This is the CEO and the business unit director. CEO on the left and the business unit director on the right. Hey, that's a great dashboard you have, the CEO says to the business unit director. Yeah, we built it ourselves without IT, bottom up. No kidding, how did you do that? Oh, my analyst bought a tool called Tableau and he's a whiz with it. Did IT approve that? We told them it was an analyst tool. Oh, sure, I've got to get that. That would be great. We can make this a de facto BI standard, land and expand. Anybody racing to catch up with these new visualization tools in their organization? So I guess the point is overall that you guys are being squeezed by big data on one hand, business units on the other. And the question becomes, what do you do? What do you do to stay relevant? What do you do until the business realizes that it needs governance? What do you do when the money, control, and influence are moving away from you into the business units? Well, I've got a few things that you can work on in the remaining time that we have. One, foster convergence. There's three main areas from a technical perspective that really need to be converged. The world of business intelligence, the world of advanced analytics, and data management, which seem to be running in their own silos within even a lot of IT environments. We need to bring these together to create an analytical ecosystem and team that drives real business value. So how do we do that? Well, one, we have to create a shared organization. Now, granted, we're not going to be in charge of this organization. This is a virtual organization, a grassroots organization. And we're only one player in it. And we may not have the influence we once had or think we have. There's a lot of different players who touch data, who have influence over data, who fund data projects. Chief data officers and business unit CIOs, business unit reporting teams, business analysts in the business units, master data management and data governance teams, security and audit, big users of data, infrastructure administration who are building Hadoop clusters and managing our data warehouse databases. Of course, the advanced analytics team and functional analytic managers who oversee teams of financial analysts, sales analysts, operations analysts. We need to bring these folks together in what I call a business analytics center of excellence. And it's more than just core competencies. It really is a grassroots organization where everybody realizes they're heading in the same direction, but maybe taking different paths there. And all those paths are legitimate. But you know what? It would be great if we could align our efforts so that we're more efficient and effective in doing so. This takes a lot of communication, a lot of collaboration. It's not easy. It takes a lot of luncheons with people that you've never met before. I have a framework for a Business Analytics Center of Excellence pictured in the middle now that points out the core constituencies and the interactions they need to have to make this Center of Excellence move and have value and gain traction. That's obviously a big task. It requires strong leadership from your director of BI, director of analytics, and strong sponsorship and commitment. We also need to create a shared architecture. We've got a lot of different piece parts in our environments now. And this conceptual architecture maps the four intelligences to this architecture. You have the source data area on the left with all different kinds of data sources and data types. A staging area hub, or what some people call data lake, in front of that. We have our continuous intelligence, business intelligence, which is our data warehouse and reporting environment, and our analytics intelligence environments that either pull data directly from the source systems or from the hub. And then we have this layer of abstraction sitting between our engines and our users. In the top-down world, we call that a semantic layer that's usually built into a BI tool. Not the best place to put a semantic layer since we all have multiple BI tools. It would be best to have an external semantic layer that all the BI tools could access, kind of a data virtualization layer. And in the bottom-up world, this abstraction layer is what we're starting to see evolve as a data catalog, kind of a map for business analysts to the underlying databases, tables, and fields, where they can go and find sources, profile that data, and plant breadcrumbs about what they found so that analysts following them can learn from their knowledge. So using social media, we can start to build governance from the grassroots up based on shared knowledge. Yes, not all governance has to be top-down. We can leverage the new tools, the new visual discovery tools, the new data preparation tools, the new data cataloging tools to start to build governance, that common vocabulary in your organization from the ground up, based on actual experience, not abstractions. The beauty about this architecture, which some clients have actually adopted wholesale, is that you can implement it with any technology. You can implement each box separately, or the whole thing on one box, or from one vendor. And probably the most interesting part is the analytics intelligence down here. That can take many, many different forms. It can be a Hadoop cluster. It could be partitions in your warehouse. It could be your new BI tool that provides much greater self-service within a governed framework for business analysts to get what they want, how they want it, when they want it. This architecture pulls these two worlds together. As you can see, the dotted line horizontally running through. That's kind of the demilitarized zone of BI, the line that separates the world of top-down and BI and bottom-up. We need organizations that cross that line. We need architectures that cross that line. And we need to blend the two worlds of BI, the top-down and bottom-up. There's a lot of talk about self-service these days. It's a very complex topic, because what's self-service to one person is impossible for another. So self-service really is the domain of the bottom-up world, of business analysts, who really do want self-service data integration tools, data prep tools, where they can go and mash up data from any different source to get the answers they need. They want self-service BI tools that allow them to use that data and then create reports and dashboards from scratch. They want self-service analytic tools so they can prototype analytical models using advanced algorithms that either run because they're simple enough, or they pass on to a legitimate data scientist or statistician to improve. In the top-down world, I like to say that we don't have self-service, we have silver service. That is, we deliver views of information to users on a silver platter. We give that to them in bite-sized chunks tailored to their individual roles. So for the most part, that means tailored dashboards, interactive dashboards, 3 clicks to any data in their domain. It also means that if they do want to do some ad hoc, which has always been the Achilles heel of BI for casual users, we give them a search box where they can type English words into the search box and generate a query that produces a visualization that they can then pin to a dashboard and create their own dashboards. It also means that we embed BI directly into the business applications they use day in, day out. No more operational reports. We put the intelligence in the context of the application they're using to do their job. That's what's going to make BI pervasive. So this is the world of guided analytics versus the bottom-up world is the world of discovery analytics. Now, as I said earlier, these guys in the bottom-up world, they're kind of like your leading edge of requirements gatherers. You really want them to be out there pushing the bleeding edge and finding stuff that you can put into the top-down world. But there needs to be a very strong gateway between the two worlds, because you don't want unfiltered junk moving from the bottom-up world to the top-down world. Because if you deliver untrustworthy data to casual users, you all know the consequences, right? They will stop using your tools. They will stop using your reports that you've worked so hard on. So we need what I call a data governance gateway between these two worlds. Yes, we want them to publish new results and new views into this world. And maybe the first step in publishing is just to their colleagues in the bottom-up world. Because guess what? These guys reinvent the wheel all the time. Give them an environment where they can collaborate and share their own insights with each other, they're going to be much more efficient and won't reinvent the wheel. But this gateway consists of an organizational handoff. And this gets into the BI Center of Excellence, where we embed BI professionals in a federated organization inside the business units who can take that handoff, take an ad hoc report, and turn it into a production report that the rest of the business can use. We also, in some cases, need a data governance check from the data governance organization, because if you're going to add new fields to the enterprise warehouse or to some database, you want to make sure that those fields don't already exist, aren't called something else, are calculated in the way that makes sense for the organization. And then finally, you need a technology handoff, and it's good to know that a lot of BI tools out there today are taking governed self-service seriously, where they allow analysts and super users to do any kind of analysis they want, edit reports that already exist by adding new data, creating new metrics and dimensions, and if they have permission, to publish it to the rest of the world. So I think you heard a presentation from Click about governed discovery, and we just produced a report at Eckerson Group on that very topic. Governed discovery. How do you balance freedom and control?